Mike McCormick is in the house virtually, the author of a terrific, searing memoir of his time working with Joe Biden in the White House when Biden was vice president of the United States. He has talked now for years about real problems with Joe Biden, the man, the character, his policies. And we're visiting with him a bit about the China connection. Um, Let me come back before we get too much into the weeds on this Hollywood transaction. Uh, One of the things that's fascinating to me, and I'm sure you've got insights into it, is that it's not just during the time when he was vice president, and Xi Jinping was then the vice president of China, and they forged this very close personal relationship in which they traveled extensively and spent a lot of time together. Um, it's also that as president of the United States, Joe Biden has spent hours on the phone talking with Xi Jinping, now the general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, the dictator of China. And my question to you, I guess, Mike, is this: knowing him as you do, and obviously his mental state has deteriorated greatly since he was in the vice presidency. What are the chances that those are real conversations between these two men going on for hours and hours on end, as opposed to, I mean, setting aside even the time for translation, these being really dictation sessions by the Chinese communists to Biden as to what he is to do to meet their needs?
I traveled with Joe Biden in China several times,
Hmm.
and what I would say is I think he had such ambitions to be president, and he was so predictable that the Chinese kind of made a sort of a psychological profile of him. I mean, if you're
Hmm.
looking for the Manchurian candidate, it's Joe Biden, as
You
far
got
as
it.
they're concerned.
Yeah.
They brought him in under their wing. They started working on him exactly the way he wanted them to. This politics of personal connection and these one
Hmm.
on one meetings, they gave him all this attention. He became the point man on the Asia pivot, and that led to him giving away tremendous. Uh, he's a lousy deal maker. He
Yeah.
made lousy deals. The Chinese knew they could pull things out of him. They compromised him somewhat with Hunter,
Hmm.
and he was okay with that. But then I think really what happened was what I write about in the Substack in 2014, in the summer, there was the Ebola outbreak. China and America sort of collaborated on the Ebola outbreak in Africa.
Hmm.
That led to in October 2015, um, Joe Biden's Ron Klain, his number one operative, being
Hmm.
named as the Ebola czar. Ron
Yeah.
Klain took over everything that had to be known about pandemic responses
Hmm.
in 2014. This is October.
Fascinating.
He took over. He became very close with Fauci. He became
Hmm.
very close with Francis Collins. In November 2014, Obama goes to Beijing and signs a series of sort of agreements with Xi. One of the agreements is for viral research. They're going to do research into virology.
Hmm.
That's the beginning of the funding process for the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I think that came out of Joe Biden's one on ones. I think he agreed to it. I think
Hmm.
that's what Chinese wanted all along. And these Hollywood, this opening, we're going to open Hollywood, but hey, here's what we want.
Yeah.
And there's more evidence about Chris Dodd being involved in that in White House visitor logs that I've seen
Hmm.
around the time of that 2014 signing of that agreement.
Yeah. Well, just to stay with this issue of the compromises that Joe Biden made with the Chinese Communist Party, and their implications for the country. You're talking about essentially the basis upon which that whole gain of function research collaboration took place. I assume that the money flow, the technology flow from Ralph Barrick and company in North Carolina, for example, to the Chinese biological warfare program, to put a fine
Right.
point on it. And Mike, I guess what I'm asking sort of your overarching assessment of is, given what you saw firsthand, given the extent of, well, the compromise of Joe Biden, I think it's fair to say, but also the willingness, maybe for his own personal ambitions, maybe because he thought that this would, enrich him, or for whatever other reason. Does this rise, to your way of thinking, to national security problems associated with this relationship, and the extent of that compromise of Joe Biden by the Chinese Communist Party?
I think Joe Biden and senior staffers, former and present,
Hmm.
Tom Donilon,
Hmm.
Avril Haines, Tony Blinken, um,
Jake Sullivan.
Jen Psaki,
Yeah.
West Wing Partners was heavily involved in China.
Mm,
Tom Donilon, BlackRock, heavily involved in China. Avril
right.
Haines was in West Wing Partners. So was Psaki. So was Blinken. A very top aide of Joe Biden, Franny, can't remember his last name, but he was a top guy. He went to China. Um, so Biden and his people went into China wholeheartedly,
Hmm.
and they gave up. I think they gave up the farm to the Chinese
Yeah.
without realizing it, or with realizing it and thinking that if they were in charge, it was better no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Certainly, the
definitely a
South
national
China
security
Sea
advisor.
was one of those
I
very tangible concessions to the Chinese, and we're reaping the whirlwind as a result of it. But I'm so glad you mentioned Tom Donilon, because, of course, he's just been appointed to a senior position as the chairman of the Foreign Policy Advisory Board of the State Department. He is a walking compromise by the Chinese, it seems. As you say, a senior guy at BlackRock runs their investment institute. Um, and to the extent that all of these people have the Chinese Communist Party's hooks into them, I think it really is a national security problem of the first order. And we're going to be continuing to dig into it. And we hope to have your help in doing so. Mike McCormick, thank you. We have to leave it at that for today. Your Joe Biden Unauthorized is tremendously important, as is your Substack, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the Hunter Biden laptop. Keep it up, my friend. Come back to us again soon. I hope the rest of you will do the same again next time. Until then, this is Frank Gaffney. Thanks for watching.